This video covers Review 5, Overriding Linear Equations. On problem 1, we are asked to graph 3x plus y equals negative 6. The problem for us is that we know how to graph when we have y equals mx plus b. So we need to get y by itself so we can graph. So my goal is to get y by itself. To do that, I need to move 3x to the other side through the opposite operation. On the left side, it will cancel. On the right side, the negative 3x and the negative 6 are not like terms, so I do not combine them. I just rewrite them. Now, y is completely by itself, so I'm ready to identify my slope and my y-intercept. Remember that slope is always found next to x. My y-intercept is always what follows and is the point 0, negative 6. And then slope-intercept form is what we just found in blue. Y equals negative 3x minus 6. In order to graph, I go down to negative 6 on the y-axis. And then go down 3 right 1 because my slope is negative 3 over 1. I can also go up and to the left, and I make sure when I draw my line that my slope is decreasing, or my line is decreasing, because of that negative slope, which it is. For problem 2, I'm going to solve for y again, because again, to graph, I need y by itself. So I distribute negative 4 times x and negative 4 times 1. And then I add 10 to both sides. Remember, when we add or subtract, we only do it with like numbers, whereas when we divide, we have to divide everything. So when I add 10 to both sides, I'm not adding it to every piece, just to the left side and the right side, wherever it belongs. I then have negative 4x, and negative 4 plus 10 is a positive 6. Again, my slope is found next to x. My y-intercept follows. This time it starts up at a positive 6. And my slope-intercept form is what we found there in gray. I go up to 6 on the y-axis. My slope is down 4, right 1. Down 4, right 1. And when I draw my line, I double check that my line is decreasing because, again, I have a negative slope. Problem 3 is similar to problem 1, where in order to graph, we have to solve for y. So again, I move the x. Again, my x and my numbers are not like terms, so I just rewrite them. And I am very careful to bring my y down with everything in the box. Inside the box, we have a negative 3y, so I need to divide by negative 3. Whatever I do to the left side with division, I do to every piece on the right side. So for problem 2, when we added, we just combined like terms, which is why we only added with numbers with numbers. But when we divide, everything gets divided. Doesn't matter if they are naturally like terms or not. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 cancels. Negative divided by negative is a positive 2/3 x. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 is a positive 3. My slope is with x, so that means I'm going to go up 2, right 3. My y-intercept is a positive 3. And again, slope-intercept form we already found at 2/3 x plus 3. So I'm going to take my y-intercept and plot it at a positive 3. This time my slope is positive, so I go up and to the right, up 2, right 3, up 2, right 3, up 2, right 3. And when I draw my line, I just double check to make sure that is an increasing line because my slope is positive, which it is. Problem 4 is asking for a horizontal line that goes through the point negative 4, 5. So a horizontal line is a special case. It is a HOI. HOI reminds us that we have a horizontal line. Our slope will be 0. That's what the 0 stands for. And my equation will start with y equals, and I only need my y point. In order to graph, I'm going to go to the point -5, 4, so left 5, up 4. And it's a horizontal line, so I go straight across. And that's all I need for this problem. Problem 5 is a line that passes through the same point but has an undefined slope, so that would be a VUX. VUX meaning vertical line, so this time it's going to go up and down. The U for my slope, meaning undefined. My equation is going to be x equals my x point. So remember, the Hoy and VUX tell you exactly what letter you need to write with your equation. I go to the point -5, 4, and a vertical line goes up and down, so I go up and down. Just like basketball players who have good verticals, they're jumping up and down, not left to right. Problem 6 has given us a graph and asked us to find the slope, y-intercept 0, and then write our equation. So slope, I go from point to point. It does not matter which 2 points you go from as long as you go left to right. So from left to right, I go up 3 and right 2. So my slope would be 3/2. My y-intercept, it is crossing at a -6. 0 means where it crosses the x, and the word 0 tells us they just want a number, not a point, so it crosses at 4. And then when I put my equation together, remember we do not need the 0, we just need the slope and the y-intercept, as well as an x and a y. So y equals 3/2 x minus 6. I double check my slope is positive, my line is increasing, so I'm good to move on to the next one. This one is asking us to do the same thing, but this time we don't have nice points. If you don't have nice points, my advice is to see where it crosses the x and the y, because most of the time they're going to make it cross at a nice place for you. From point, to find my slope, I go down 2 to the right 3. So that would be a slope of -2/3. My y-intercept crosses at a +2. My 0 is at a +3. And my equation is y equals -2/3 x plus 2. So I have a slope of -2/3 down 2 right 3. And a y-intercept at 2, so my b value is 2. Problem 3 asks me to write the equation of a line that passes through -3, -1, and 6, -4. Also identify m and b. Anytime I have 2 points, I'm going to use the table function, the stat edit that we talked about on Thursday, in my calculator. So I have the point -3, -1, and 6, -4. So I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to click the Stat button under Delete and Edit. If there's anything in my list, remember I clear it out. I do not delete the list, because if I delete the list, it's gone forever. My point is -1, -3, and 6, I'm sorry, -3, -1. My apologies. And 6, -4. Just double checking that I got it right. So -3, -1, 6, -4. I will then go Stat Calc 4 and click Enter as many times as it takes. So I have A was -0.3 repeating, which is -1/3, and B is -2. A friendly reminder, if you get something like A, -0.333, and you can't remember what it means or what fraction it is, we can type -0.333 repeating a couple times, math, enter, enter, and it will remind you that it is the fraction -1/3. From here, my B is still my B value, so B and B are the same. M and A are the same, so that's how we can quickly identify. And my equation is still that y equals mx plus b, so y equals m or a x plus b. For problem 2, they again gave us 2 points. They gave us an x-intercept and a y-intercept. So my table will be 2, 0, and 0, -3. So I'm going to go back to stat edit, and because I have 2 points, type all this in. Remember, you can clear out your list or you can simply type over. If you type over, make sure you completely type over everything. So I have 2, 0, and 0, -3. Stat, calc, 4, enter as many times as it takes, and I get 1.5 and -3. If your test is picky and it gives you a fraction, remember we can type 1.5 math enter, and see that that's 3/2. So this one just wants the equation, so that would be 3/2 x minus 3. Problem 10 gives me a slope and a point and asks me to leave it in point-slope form. So before I write my answer, I'm going to refresh myself on what point-slope form looks like so I can plug it in correctly. And I label my point x1 and y1 as well as my slope m. When I plug in y minus y1 changes signs. M is -3, x minus x1 is 4. And again, this asked me to leave it in point-slope form, so that's all I need to do. So remember, with point-slope form, you plug in your point and your m value. Your point plugs in as the opposite, so 4, 7 turned into -4 and -7. Problem 11 gives us a slope and a y-intercept, so it gives us an m and a b. Therefore, we should quickly and easily plug into y equals mx plus b. My slope is -6, my y-intercept is 5, and I'm done with my problem. So if they give you a slope and a y-intercept, then you're done. If they give you a slope and an x-intercept, remember to do point-slope. Problem 12 is a special case. We go through the 0.96 and has a slope of 0. So slope of 0 is a hoi. Therefore, my equation would be y equals my y point. And I'm done. 13 is asking for a vertical line, which would be a vux. Vux tells us we use x, and we use our x point. And we're done. So again, the special cases are actually pretty quick and simple. Do not make them harder than they need to be. 14 gives us a slope of -5, passes through the point 1, -2. Ask us to write in a point slope and then convert. So my slope is -5. My point x1, y1. So again, just to be safe, I'm going to write out point slope to make sure that I plug in correctly, because half the battle is plugging in. My y1 point of -2 gets changed to a +2 because minus minus is really a plus. And then my +1 turns into a -1. So again, when you plug in your points with point slope, they change signs. Now it asked me to put it in slope intercept, meaning solve for y. So I have to distribute. -5 times x is -5x. -5 times -1 is +5. And then subtract 2 from both sides. So y equals -5x plus 3. And I'm done. So I put it in point slope, and then I converted, and I'm done. 15 says our means December paycheck amount can be found using the function y equals 7.25x plus 80 for x hours. Her paycheck includes a certain price per hour and a holiday bonus. What is the rate of change of her paycheck in dollars with respect to x hours that she worked in December? So again, remember, rate of change is really a fancy word for slope. Slope is found with x, so it's $7.25, so number per x. X, they tell us, is hours, so I replace x with hours and number with the actual number. That is my slope. 16 asks us to write an equation in point-slope form that represents the table below. So for this problem, there can kind of be a couple different answers depending on which point you pick. First thing I need to do is use stat edit to find my equation for, or my slope. With stat edit, we can put it into slope-intercept form, but they ask specifically for point-slope. So I am going to use stat edit to get my slope, or you can do it by hand. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then my y's are 3, 7, 11, 15, 19, and 23. From here, stat calc 4, enter, 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 and we get 4x minus 1. Now remember, with point-slope form, we have y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So we just found our m. In point-slope, there is no spot for b, meaning I cannot put b in my answer, meaning I need to find a different thing to plug into my answer. Remember, with point and slope, we need a point and a slope. Down below, we have quite a few different points, so we can pick any point that we want. I'm going to use 2, 7. You could use 1, 3, 3, 11, 4, 15, or so on. So in point slope, y minus my y point equals the m we found from our calculator times x minus my x point, and I'm done. On your test, if this is a multiple choice problem, first thing you need to check is if the slope is correct on all of your multiple choices. If it is, then you need to figure out what point did they plug in, did they make the signs the opposite, and did they put y with y and x with x. So those are things that you can use to see if you got that answer, which answer choice is correct. 17, we have charms being added to a bracelet. The table shows the weight of how the weight of the bracelet changes every time they add a charm. What is the rate of change? So again, I have a table. I'm going to put it in stat edit. So I go stat, enter. For this one, I'm going to go clear out my list. Remember, we want to clear out what's in there, not delete it. And then for my y's, I put the weight in ounces, so 2.2, 2.65, 3.1, 3.55, and 4. I go stat calc 4, and they just asked for the rate of change, so that would be my A value, which is 0.45. And then they ask, what does the rate of change represent? So remember, it's a number per x. So 0.45 is my slope, per x is my charm. So 45 ounces, 0.45 ounces per charm. So y per x. 18 asks me to match these different equations to their proper form. Not all of my choices will be used. Standard form, ax plus by equals c, so I can see that on my formula chart. So I'm looking for x and y to be on the same side. So answer choice A, x and y are on the same side. Not B, not C, not D, not E, not F. G, x and y are on the same side. Point slope, y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So I'm looking for my y minus y. So D would be 1, y minus y equals mx minus x. And F, y and then m and x. Notice that B would not be 1 because x and y are flipped. And then slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b, our favorite because it's the easiest. C would be a good example. and E would be a good example. So B is the only one we did not use. It looks similar to point slope, but my X's and Y's are mixed up, so make sure you watch out for that on your test. We are asked to convert the following equations into slope-intercept form and then identify M and B. So 19, this is like what we did on the front. We're solving for Y. Remind yourself slope-intercept form is Y by itself, so we need to move everything away from Y. We move 3x to the other side. So 2y equals 3x minus 8. We then divide every piece by 2. So y is 3/2 x minus 4. My slope is with x. My b is the number, because it's b, not y-intercept, the number that follows. For 20, still trying to get y by itself, I move the x by doing the opposite operation. Remember that you just rewrite. We don't combine these like terms because they're not like terms. And then I divide every piece by 2. So y equals negative 2x minus 5. My slope is negative 2. B is negative 5. On problem 21, I have to distribute first. So 1/3 times x, 1/3 times negative 6. So if you need to remind yourself where that negative 2 comes from. And then, still trying to get y by itself, I move 3 to the other side by subtraction, the opposite operation. So y equals 1/3 x minus 5. My slope is 1/3. My b value is negative 5. Problem 22, similar situation. 4/5 times x, 4/5 times 25. Still trying to get y by itself, I subtract 13 just from the numbers. So y equals 4/5 x plus 7. My m value is 4/5, and my b value is 7. So if you've started to notice a pattern on point slope on 21 and 22, once you distribute, your slope does not change. The slope is that number in front of x, which is given to us. That's also where it comes from the formula. So we use the slope from that, and then our number, our b value, is the only part that can change after that. On the back, we've been asked to convert into standard form. So remind ourselves that standard form is the most persnickety proper form of all time. We can't have fractions. X and y have to be next to each other. It's very picky. So first I'm going to get x and y next to each other. So negative 8/3 x plus y equals negative 2. Now x and y are next to each other, so that's good, but I can't have a fraction. So I need to multiply everything by the denominator. Remember, when we multiply or divide, we do it to every single piece. The reason we do that is because this cancels here and we have negative 8. If you're not sure, double check with yourself on the calculator. Negative 8/3 times 3 is a negative 8, so my fraction went away. I don't need it to equal 1, I need it to not be a fraction. 3 times y is 3y, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. You might also see it divided by negative 1, where all of your signs are flipped, so we have 8x minus 3y equals a positive 6. For problem 24, first thing we have to do is distribute negative 2/5 times x, negative 2/5 times negative 5. Then I'm going to move the 2/5 x to the other side because, again, I need x and y together. So this part is new, everything else stays. I need my numbers on the other side, so I need to move 8 now to the opposite side so that x and y can have some alone time on their own. And then again, I can't have fractions, so I have to multiply every piece by 5. So this becomes 2x. 5 times y is 5y. 10 times 5 is 50. We have two quick review problems where they ask us to create a table that represents a function. A function means no x's repeat. So as long as you make all your x's different, your y's could be the same thing every time. You can change them. You can do 5, 6, 7, 8. Doesn't matter. We are concerned with the x's. My range for problem 26, range covers y's. So bottom to top. My bottom starts down at 0, and then it just keeps going. So instead of having a ceiling, it's just going to keep going. If my y's are going up and never stopping, as we go up on the y's, my y's get bigger than 0. It could also equal 0 because there is a value when y is at 0.